I want to leave our graduates with a thought before she graces us with her comments. I appeal to each of you to lead with empathy, act with integrity, and constantly pursue excellence as the keepers of our common peace, strategists, and carriers of hope. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to formally introduce Mrs. Susan Eisenhower, a shining example of prudence, diplomacy, and forward thinking.
General Hill, distinguished faculty and guests, 2023 graduates, it is an honor to be with you here today to congratulate this graduating class on your remarkable accomplishments. Distance education is particularly challenging when thinking of how many moving parts there were to your life as you studied. So today is also a moment to congratulate family members for the support they gave today's honored graduates. From now on, you'll be forever tied to this distinguished institution. The War College has given you their all, the source of their knowledge and wisdom, as well as the spirit of their history and a sense of national purpose. Today, we are living in truly remarkable times, a period fraught with great danger, but also with opportunity. There's not much I can say to you regarding my own career, except that I spent nearly 30 years of it dedicated to trying to bring a peaceful transition to the post-Soviet world. I was deeply involved in government service through NASA and the Department of Energy, and I was honored to play some role in building the International Space Station and working with the cooperative threat reduction programs that safely managed fissile material protection and engagement with Russia's nuclear experts through our collaboration with Russian nuclear cities. These were some of the most innovative projects of the history of post-Soviet cooperation. In February of 2022, someone acknowledged the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Quote, "What's it like," he asked me, "to have everything you worked for in your career collapse in 5 days?" End quote. He was, of course, referring to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. In sum, I spent 30 years of my life devoted to trying to bring about a reconciliation with the United States and the other great global nuclear power, Russia. Clearly, all of us who had worked hard to this end failed. After a moment of reflection, I told my colleague, failing did not mean I made the wrong choice. We must start our journey with hope and commitment. We must not be deterred by the possibility that the things we've worked on may fall apart. If we stand back, no progress is possible. In fact, for almost a generation, we enjoyed a safer world because of our efforts. I also told my colleague that I regrettably am not surprised that this era unraveled. It was not sustainable after bilateral agreements and global treaties began to fray and break. Today, the great power rivalry has become the power game of our time. It is predicated on winning and losing, not the ideals many of us stood for, cooperation and global progress. Such rivalry can be uniquely dangerous, for it is often marked by some of the most powerful human emotions that drive individuals: nationalism, pride, hatred, humiliation, revenge, and even love. These national feelings often take expression in a determination to dominate, control, prevail, and influence. In an age of nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence, deep fakes, cyber hacking, and situational or subjective truth, we have many legitimate reasons to worry how we're going to meet our global goals like climate change mitigation in an era where cooperation is no longer seen as a high value. Had we continued working towards more cooperative times, we might have channeled some of the wisdom of our elders for inspiration. Those of the World War II generation especially. In thinking of my own grandfather, Dwight David Eisenhower, I can say I learned a lot. Some from the reading of his books and diaries, but some of it from him at my grandparents' dining room table. He was as tough as he had to be. I know that from reading his books and diaries. But actually, his core, he was a humanist. He was a loving, caring man, and he paid attention to people and gave them the kind of interest that would help him inform his decisions, but also create a sense of morale. After many years of managing and leading fractious national coalitions of ambitious A-type personalities, often in times of difficult split-second decision-making necessary for success on the battlefield, General Eisenhower clearly arrived at some foundational thoughts. On Ike's return from World War II, not long after he replaced General George Marshall, he wrote a letter to the superintendent of West Point, General Maxwell Taylor, and urged him to establish a psychology department at the military academy, at a time when West Point was almost exclusively an engineering school. In his letter of January 26, 1946, after becoming Chief of Staff, he wrote of the importance of psychology. Quote, "I think both theoretical and practical instruction along this line could, at the very least, awaken the majority of cadets to the necessity of handling human problems on a human basis, and it could do much to improve leadership and personnel training in the Army and at large. Psychology requires at least some imagination and a willingness to put yourself in someone else's place," my grandfather used to tell me. "How can you account for people's behavior if you do not have some insight into the reasons their passions are so inflamed? How can you mobilize your followers if you don't have some idea of the worries and anxieties they live with? How can you anticipate your adversary's seriousness if not for an assessment and an understanding of all they've been through, all they love, and all they fear? Humiliation," a practicing psychiatrist told me last week, "is the most powerful human emotion of all." Not long after the war, Dwight Eisenhower's mother-in-law, this is Mamie's mother, of course, wrote him for advice. He suggested she think about her problem in a different way. Writing back, he considered that she give thought to the fragile nature of personal feelings. Quote, "Humans are more emotional and sentimental beings than they are logical or intellectual," he observed. Today, I don't think we give enough thought to the views and emotions of people we don't know, especially overseas. This is a special problem in the United States where commercial and professional interaction tends to be all business. But in many other parts of the world, people operate and partner with others only when they feel that they have faithful, enduring relationships, after they've made connections they feel they can rely on, and when they feel they are respected and heard. This is also true of what is important here in the United States. In an era of high-tech and data-driven decision-making and data-driven evaluations of people's strengths and weaknesses, I can imagine that if some of the greats from our past were with us today, they would caution us. Human tolerance and acceptance and a sense of security are at the heart of what survives and endures over time. What do our algorithms really know of this? As much effort as it has taken for me to come to terms with what I hoped would have been my own small legacy in serving my country, I at least have some idea of how much work there is still to do. I think it is important for all of us to recall and protect some of the groundwork we laid. That is, retaining some of the muscle memory required for advancing cooperation with people we don't know and maybe don't even like. This not only applies to geopolitics, but in our own human relations. So much of what puts us at odds with those we don't identify with is an inadequate understanding of the logic imbued in their culture. Perhaps we don't see it for what it is, a human expression of what they love and how they survive in their own unique national and personal circumstances. I have my grandfather to thank for much of this thinking, and I hope if you leave today and take anything with you, that you will remember that human beings are more emotional and sentimental than they are logical or analytical. The distant horizon of global survival, stability, and peace is now yours. Congratulations to this wonderful class of 2023. I am really humbled in your presence for the work it took to accomplish your goals. I wish you the very best on your human continuing journey, one I know that has benefited greatly by what you've learned here at Carlisle. Thank you very much.